tell me the fairy tale again?
Gretel and Hansel, directed by Oz Perkins, the director of The Black Coat's Daughter and the co-star of Quigley, also starring Gary Busey.
What are you doing with my games? Your games? The dog brought them in. These games are the best we've ever seen. You folks should have a seat then, while we have a contract drawn up.
God, I love the internet. So similar to Wendy, this is another modern day retelling, reorganization of a classical fairy tale, this time on the traditional Hansel and Gretel folktale. And if you're familiar with that folktale, then you pretty much know the story. The story itself pretty much plays out beat for beat. Only obviously this time the focus here is on Gretel and kind of it's another coming of age story, but within like a supernatural kind of old school Puritan setting, similar to what The Witch was doing. Now, unlike The Witch, I think this movie does a much better job of portraying Gretel's coming of age, and I think Sophia Lillis does a particularly good job in the part. The problem is that this movie, because it is going based off of a very predictable story that we are all very, very familiar with. We all know the story of Hansel and Gretel. We all know how that goes.
Careful with that, dear. I'd hate for you to start something you can't stop.
So for example, like the deliberation and the drawing out of the tension is really good, and the atmosphere and the set design, like the film is like exquisitely well made. It's one of the best looking films that I saw so far this year. And the problem is that the movie tries to kind of use its stylization in order to kind of stretch out the story and make it longer than it needs to be. To the point where by the time they finally get to the third act, it kind of just feels like it just gets rushed through. Now, I know that's gonna bother a lot of people less than it does me, but for me, it really took away from my overall enjoyment of this, because the entire time I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, when is the witch gonna die? When is the witch gonna die? Okay, the witch is gonna die. And the shitty thing is that the movie actually was trying to focus on something really interesting, and that because this is a coming of age story about Gretel, how kind of the witch is attempting to tempt her in order to become her apprentice, while also like the witch can take the form of a younger person, and I thought that was gonna be used more in the tempting of Hansel, you know, since like kind of a coming of age for both of them. And then they have this whole origin story about the birth of the witch that turns out to not be that, and it just feels like there's like a whole lot of really interesting threads that could be used to kind of beef up this story and make it a little bit bigger and a little bit more interesting than the simplistic fairy tale, but I feel like they don't really do that.